I am okay with cockroaches. I might even be okay with rodents.
Really?
Yeah, like rats, they don't bother me much, but snakes, my goodness, I have nightmares about snakes. Hello and welcome to Getting Pacific, where we get specific on trending topics straight from the newsroom at TaiwanPlus. I'm Joey Chou.
And I'm Michelle Chiang, and for this episode of Getting Pacific, we're jumping into herpetology. No, that's not what you're thinking. Herpetology is the study of reptiles and amphibians, and herpetologists are the people who do the studying. As previously mentioned, I'm a huge animal person, so honestly, I'll grab a hold of any animal-related topic and refuse to let go. In recent news, researchers have recorded the first ever video footage of Taiwan's Dinachistrodon acutus, or 100-pacer, pit viper snakelets, hatching in the wild.
Taiwan Forestry Agency has released what it says is the world's first footage of a rare species of pit viper hatching in the wild. Last year in central Taiwan, the agency found a clutch of 20 eggs being guarded by their mother. They set up infrared camera equipment to monitor the nest, and more than 2 months later, captured images of the snakelets hatching and leaving the nest. The viper is highly venomous and is known locally as a 100-pacer. Experts say the footage is a breakthrough in understanding the species, which is classified as vulnerable.
I love snakes, and I used to have 2 of them when I lived in the US, whom unfortunately I couldn't bring here because of animal import regulations. So, how much do you know about snakes, Joey?
Oh my goodness, one of my greatest fears. I am okay with cockroaches. I might even be okay with rodents.
Really?
Yeah, like rats, they don't bother me much, but snakes, my goodness, I have nightmares about snakes. And maybe it has something to do with these Kung Fu novels that I used to read that, snakes can actually kill you in 7 steps. So there are the 100 pacers and like 7 pacers. And in the Kung Fu novels, they say because it can kill you in 7 steps. So if you're bitten by a snake, just don't move. So unless you don't walk. But I'm pretty sure that's not how it works. Today, we're going to find out more about it. I know that there are, I think, 10 really venomous snakes here in Taiwan, and some of them we don't even have serum for them, as in we don't have antivenom, a way to treat them. But I know 2 of them that are really venomous. One of them is called 雨伞节. It has like black and white stripes. The other one is the 100-pacer that you were just talking about. It's directly translated from the Mandarin 百步蛇, and it implies that if you're bitten, you will only be able to walk 100 paces before you die, or some say 40 minutes. But is that even true?
Sometimes it's funny how ophidiophobia, or the phobia of snakes, can be very obvious. This species is known in some places as the 5-pacer, or maybe the 7-pacer from your kung fu movies, an even more blown-out exaggeration of its venom potency. Now, the venom is a hemotoxin, very strongly hemorrhagic, and bites are painful with immediate bleeding, followed by really awful stuff like swelling, blistering, necrosis, ulceration, sometimes heart palpitations. But if people bitten by this snake are treated fairly quickly, death is actually really uncommon. So, the 100-pacer is what is known as a pit viper, which is a subfamily of vipers. All viperids are pretty stocky, meaning they're kind of like fat, chunky snakes. They have keeled scales, a triangular head, and a pair of relatively long, hinged, hollow fangs used to inject venom via glands located just behind the eyes. I think this is really cool because the quick fold-out mechanism allows for their impressive fangs to be contained in a relatively small mouth. And they can also control whether or not they inject venom or whether it's just a dry warning bite. Pit vipers are distinguished by a heat-sensing pit organ, hence the name, located between the eye and the nostril on both sides of the head. So yes, Joey, they are heat-seeking, lightning-fast ambush predators with retractable fangs.
That is so scary. So they are designed to be perfect killing machines or hunting machines.
Exactly.
But before we freak out, people, and before I freak out, please be aware that this species is very reclusive and rarely bites and envenomates people. And also, antivenoms are available. If you are careful when hiking in remote areas, a bite will likely never occur.
Indeed. They would much rather use their resources on food than on people. Like, imagine, it takes actually a decent amount of energy to produce venom. So why would they use that if they don't have to use it?
Yeah.
So
in the wild, it's all about controlling like the use of your energy, how much you expend to get food. And 1/3 of all adult humans have some varying degrees of a fear of snakes, making it one of the most commonly reported next to arachnophobia, which is the fear of spiders, and acrophobia, the fear of heights. To be fair, though, only about 3 to 4% of people actually have quote-unquote clinically relevant opidiophobia, like the popular movie character Indiana Jones, who did a really good job of representing it in the media.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Yeah.
I totally watched his movies when I was little. I was a big fan. Though being someone who has always loved snakes, I didn't understand why he was so afraid of them. You mentioned cockroaches. I am deathly afraid of cockroaches, but other insects are kind of okay. It's weird. Everybody has their phobias, I guess. Culturally speaking, ophidiophobia has caused more problems than people think. Obviously, if someone is bitten by a snake, the victim themselves or the treating quote-unquote doctor may needlessly amputate or otherwise damage the area, which may result in further complications like gangrene and obviously not having that body part anymore. Also, if snakes are killed or otherwise removed from an ecosystem it naturally exists in, what do you think would happen?
Well, I mean, I think it's common knowledge that snakes eat rodents and other pest animals. So if they're eliminated, their food sources would overpopulate and possibly create issues like crop destruction. That would really affect us. We then have to wage war to keep our food resources safe.
Yes. Snake prey animals also carry diseases like the bubonic plague or the Black Death or hantaviruses. So we would face a greater risk that these diseases would go viral. Sorry. And of course, other animals also eat snakes, so they would go hungry as well. Snake venom is also used in medical research. In fact, it has contributed to treatments for diabetes, heart conditions, and cancer. So, since we're talking about Taiwanese snakes today, we've got a herper who created and runs www.snakesoftaiwan.com and writer of A Cobra Hijacked My Camera Bag, Snakes and Stories from Taiwan, Hans Breuer. I actually bought and read that, by the way, and it's an amazing book. But first...
Wait. So the obvious question is, did a cobra really hijack his camera bag?
Yes. It did.
Oh my gosh.
Obviously, that's not a spoiler because it's in the title, but it's a very different viewpoint of Taiwan from a naturalist standpoint. So I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Interesting. Okay.
But first, a quiz.
Here we go. Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, number 1. Snakes have very keen senses. Rank them in the order of strongest to weakest.
Okay.
So we have A, hearing, B, eyesight, C, smell, and D, touch.
Okay, I'm gonna put hearing at the very end because I think you need to have big ears to have good hearing, like dogs. So I'm gonna put that in the 4th position. I know you can see the snake's nostrils. And in all the movies I see where they try to like see from the first person view of a snake, it doesn't seem like they have good eyesight, but I'm not sure if it's a good representation of their eyesight. And I would say if you're touched, snakes should be pretty responsive to touch. Okay, so I'm going to say smell is at the top, touch is the second one, and then it's eyesight and hearing. How's that?
Wow, you're right on the money.
Really?
That's a good guess.
You got to know your enemies,
enemy.
right? Yeah.
Excellent. Great minds think alike. But yes, snakes have an extremely good sense of smell because when they flick the tongue in and out, the scary snake thing, they're using a Jacobson's organ, which is actually heightens their sense of smell and their ability to locate and identify prey. Now, if you are counting those nostrils, those pit organs, as a sense of smell, then yes, they're also kind of sort of seeing, smelling in infrared, which is pretty neat. Now, their sense of touch, because their entire body is actually covered in something kind of like fingernails, as they're moving, or if anything touches them, they are extremely sensitive to it. And then, of course, as you recognize from movies, first-person viewpoint of snakes, their eyesight is fairly bad. They can see movement, but they can't distinguish very much between an object and its environment. And you're right on the money. They don't really have ears. They don't have external ears, but they do have an inner ear system, so they do have the ability to balance themselves. All right, ready for number 2?
Yeah.
Snakes have existed for more than 100 million years.
Whoa.
What have they not evolved to do? A, spit venom. B, fly. C, reproduce asexually, or D, poison people?
I don't care about the other ones, but I hope they can't fly. So I'm going to say B and hope that's the right answer.
Actually, this is a little bit of a trick question because there are what a lot of people have seen on TV known as flying snakes.
No.
There are. But they don't actually fly.
Oh, thank goodness.
They actually use their ribs and they spread them apart to kind of create a glider, like a glider U.
Oh, okay.
And they jump from high places and can control their descent. So it's kind of like hang gliding snakes.
That's still pretty scary. Mind you, we're not their ideal prey, so they don't go after us.
No.
Especially when they have to expend that kind of energy. But, you know, in an alternate universe where they do eat people, that's pretty scary.
I'm so sorry. I might be triggering Joey here.
You're triggering something, that's for sure, yeah. I'm going to try my best to finish recording today's show.
So spitting venom is actually pretty famous. A lot of people know that several species of cobra can very accurately spit their venom, and they tend to aim for the eyes of whatever they're spitting their venom at, which is pretty cool. In my opinion, cool, scary for Joey. Yeah. As far as reproducing asexually, some species of snakes, especially in the boa or python group, have been known to do this. They clone themselves, basically, when there is the lack of a male. So, you know, the male gender is being eliminated from necessity. Just saying. It's happening. It's happening.
My wife definitely understands.
So poisoning people. Now, poison is the ability to be toxic if you eat it. Whereas snakes are venomous, so if they bite you, then they inject their toxins, right? So a lot of people are saying snakes are not poisonous. Actually, some snakes gain the poison of the prey that they eat. So they're eating toxic frogs or otherwise poisonous animals, and then they actually gain the poison from that animal into their own system, using it as a security or defense, which is very cool.
Wow.
Right? Last question.
Okay.
Now that we're circling back around, we're going to listen to Hans in a minute. How many snake species can be found in Taiwan? A, 10, B, 50, C, 90, or D, 180?
Ooh. I know there's at least 10 because I know there are 10 really venomous snakes in Taiwan, and you know, parents have warned their kids to stay away since we were little. So I'm going to say at least 10, but let's just go for the maximum amounts because I'm deathly afraid of them. And let's make my phobias even worse. How about let's say D, 180 species?
Surprisingly, no. It's a small island. There actually aren't that many snake species here. The correct answer is B, only 50 or so.
Okay, I can sleep at night.
You can feel a little better, just a little. So, I've had the good fortune to go out on a herping trip at night with Hans, which was a lot of fun. We actually found a couple of snakes crossing the road to better hunting grounds, a Taiwan habu and a green tree viper. Both are venomous, but they obviously try to run from you rather than, you know, turn around and try to attack you. So, right, we've asked Hans how he fell down this herpetology hole.
When I was a kid, in my hometown, there was this gigantic air raid bunker from the Second World War, which they had turned into a natural history museum. And half of it was fossils and the rest was live reptiles, amphibians, and bugs. I've always been fascinated with little critters. And because I was into nature photography, I looked for a nature photography club. And I found one in Taipei, and they met every Monday. And the first time I went there, there was this guy, middle-aged. It looked like he still was living in his mom's basement. And so he said, okay, I'm going to start showing some pictures I took lately. And then it's just like a barrage of National Geographic reptile stuff. Habus, vipers picking bats out of the air in caves, snakes catching and fighting with birds. And then when he was done, after 30 minutes, I just ran up to him and grabbed him by the lapels and said, look, man, where did you find all this? You know, I've been here for 20-what years. You know, I've never seen like 2 snakes in my life. And I used to go hiking a lot. So he said, well, I'm a herpetology professor. And wouldn't you like to go with me and my class next time we go to Yangmingshan and we look for snakes? And that was the beginning of the end of my normal life.
It's funny how obsessive hobbies just hit you in the face like that. I totally understand him. I also have one of those personalities where if something is super interesting, I will go 100 miles an hour learning about it until it is my life.
I suppose, but I have to say, snakes. Do you have any other phobias?
Pretty much no. Everything except for those big giant cockroaches, just say. I will run into traffic to avoid a cockroach. I myself fell in love with learning about exotic ecosystems and their occupants because of working in the pet industry, which I've mentioned before. And I really miss hooking other people with super neat terrariums and cool facts, like showing them this stuff and then they get super interested. It's really fun to be in the hobby yourself, but to spark passion for that which you love in others is the best. It's really the best. Hans was also able to tell us how he gets people to come in with him into the herping world.
Well, first of all, I'll tell you what I don't do, which I used to do. I'm happily married and have 2 children, so I'm not in the dating game anymore. But if I were, I would not start a conversation with, hey, Susie, would you like to go look for cobras with me tomorrow at midnight? Because that kind of like freaks people out. So what I do is as soon as the topic comes to nature, I said, I think nature is amazing. It's especially amazing at night. And I am in the lucky position to live in Yangmingshan, where I can go out my back door every night and look for animals, because there's so many animals at night. You see much more at night. And they start with the fluffy stuff, flying squirrels and civets and ferret badgers, not telling them that they have rabies. And then, oh yeah, we see snakes too, et cetera, et cetera. And by the time I get to the snakes, many of them were like, oh, that's cool. And then I say, hey, would you like to see all that? Because I take people on safaris. So most people are interested in this kind of stuff.
Yeah, he's a really funny guy to listen to.
I imagine if you have someone who's an expert in the field to sort of bring these things to you safely, you can fight your phobias and actually enjoy learning about them. But I love how Hans has sort of like any good salesperson, like a pitch book and a script, like he knows how to hook you. And there's ways to like take it step by step. That's pretty funny.
I think so too. He's a personality. So after the interview, Hans even thanked me for the propaganda opportunity, which I found pretty funny, and also responded with, to beat down ophidiophobia anytime, because Taiwan is changing as more information is becoming available to the public. We asked whether Hans has seen a difference regarding the underlying snake phobia here in Taiwan.
I lived in Borneo. I left Taiwan in 2011 and for Borneo, and I came back in 2020. In those 9 years, herping is basically you go up on Yangmingshan, you have your special little roads, you drive up and down, you walk up and down the ditches and look for stuff. And 13 years ago, on Saturday nights, you would always find the same people. Your biology students, reptile nuts. Now, the first time after I came back, I went to the road that I like to go best in Suzhou. And I walked down, and the first group of people I found was a family: dad, mom, 3 children, 1 teenager, and a grandfather. And I was like, what are you guys doing here in the middle of the night? They go, we're looking for animals. And then I kept finding more of these people over the next couple of weeks, and I still keep finding them. So apparently, education, nature education, and environmental education for urban people here has had some kind of positive effect. Naturing has become a hobby. And over the years of teaching in schools, they don't just book the snake guy like a magician or something and then have fun for 2 hours. All of them, they have at least 2 weeks of projects which gears towards that day. You get there, I ask a lot of questions, and I said, okay, here's a real difficult one. What's the difference between venomous and poisonous, And they've just had 2 weeks of preparation. And this little kid pipes up and goes, venom is injected and poison is ingested. I'm like, you should be standing here, They're very difficult from the biology class I took 50 years ago.
I am so glad that the Taiwan public is seeing past the urban myths and scary stories and learning about the natural world available right up mountain here.
Actually, after this episode today and after listening to Hans, it might have reduced my phobia for snakes just a tiny bit. I think if you have the chance to be properly introduced to these very natural, especially very local biologies and faunas of Taiwan, Taiwan, not only could you actually keep yourself safe when you go out hiking or go for outdoorsy activities, but also you might actually grow a keen interest for them. And I think it's really important for the kids these days, growing up in the concrete jungle of metropolitan areas like Taipei City, to not be too detached from these very natural biological diversities of Taiwan.
Yes, it's really important to know and understand ecosystems. So you foster a culture of conservation as well. So you get these kids into, they have to save the world. Sorry, kids. A little depressing. So listeners who are interested in the slithery residents of our island, please visit www.snakesoftaiwan.com, where you can find loads of pictures and detailed descriptions. Or you can pick up A Cobra Hijacked My Camera Bag, Snakes and Stories from Taiwan by Hans Breuer, available through Amazon and other booksellers.
Yeah, we'll put some of that in our show notes. And by the way, since you used the term slithery, it just occurred to me that you can't really blame the kids nor me for our negative impression of snakes because, like in Harry Potter, the Slytherins is a house that's conniving and, it's a little bit mischievous. So,
hey, don't insult my house.
Oh, is that your house? I'm so sorry. I should have thought of that. Of course it is.
Of course it is.
So there's the biological fear of snakes, but there's also the cultural connotation that we put onto it.
Yeah, it's good to bust through archaic cultural, assumptions and old mentalities.
Yeah, that's right. So once again, check our show notes and maybe pick up a copy of A Cobra Hijacked My Camera Bag by Hans. That wraps up today's episode. So thank you for joining us, and I hope we got Pacific enough for you. I am Joey Chow, and you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Joey Taipei. If you'd like to give us an idea or share your thoughts, toss us your 2 cents about the show, don't be shy. Feel free to write to Joey at gettingpacific.com.
And I'm Michelle Chiang. You can usually find me over on Radio Taiwan International, where I host the show Geek Out and Jukebox Journeys. But if you want to talk to me, you can find me at Phoenix Dice, basically on all social media, because I am the Chief Phoenix Wrangler at phoenixdice.com, where you can get your Dungeons & Dragons dice and other adventuring gear stuff.
Yep. And if you want even more news and views from Taiwan and around the world, check out the huge catalog of news and entertainment on our website, TaiwanPlus.com, as well as YouTube, Instagram, or Twitter. Thank you for listening, and we hope you'll join us again on Getting Pacific.